Hello, everybody. Just to start the podcast on a positive tone, before we get into the real subject matter at hand, the Raptors, they're officially playing the Orlando Magic in the first round of the playoffs, and if you are a Raptors Digest regular, you know all the banter that surrounds one of the infamous ex-Raptors, T. Ross, so you know that there's going to be a lot of discussion about that come playoff time, so that is going to be fun and exciting, and stay tuned. But to get right into the serious issue, and the reason that you clicked on this podcast in the first place, there is an abhorrent, disgusting prejudice against the only Canadian team in the NBA. You know, time and time again, we're reminded just how little respect is given by the American media with any talks surrounding the Raptors and the team, its players. You can just look at Kawhi, for example. Before he was regarded as a top 5 talent in the league, best two-way player, finals MVP, and now he's having a statistical high in multiple categories, right? He's leading his team to the second best record in the whole league. Multiple times through the season, you've heard analysts, I'm using air quotations here, say that he's underperforming, that he's no longer a top guy, that he's overrated. I mean, I'm just putting 2 and 2 together here. On San Antonio, with a team with worse record, and he's having worse statistical seasons, he's getting all the praise. Comes up to Toronto. We're going to get into it. And I don't want to give all the smoke to guys like Stephen A., Colin Cowherd, because really they've built their careers off of silly, goofy opinions, uneducated arguments a lot of the time. But again, and I've made a podcast about this before, last time was Stephen A., but again, they've crossed the line. And Colin Cowherd, who I never watched, trust me, he lured me into his video with a good clickbaity title, giving regular preseason awards, and he opted to give Kawhi Leonard the most overrated player in the league award. That's what this podcast is all about. I'm going to break down his arguments. Again, I'm using the air quotations to support his claims, and this just needs to be stopped. So we're just going to go through, I guess, one by one. Vocal prowess, or his ability to speak on the court. It's a weird argument to have when determining best player. I mean, I guess he's heard, maybe he's never heard, I guess, the old adage, lead by example. You know, he hasn't seen how the Raptors culture has shifted dramatically since the arrival of Kawhi. He probably underrates that Kawhi being the number one person on a brand new team leads to the second best record in the entire NBA. I also find it funny, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, but how he dismisses the Golden State Warriors. Backtracking, he gave Kevin Durant the best player. He doesn't believe in the MVP, so he gave the best player in the league award to Kevin Durant. So I find it funny that he overlooks how without Curry, really the Warriors are much less of a team than they are without Durant, but we're going to get into this claim. So I can understand, maybe for leadership, it's different. It's a different mold to have a player that's not as vocal out on the court. But if you're determining overrated in terms of, what else do you need? Stats? Kawhi Leonard has those. Regular season performance. The Raptors bested the Golden State Warriors. It's a strange argument to have, but we'll continue along. Okay. He says it's ridiculous to put Kawhi Leonard in the same class as Giannis and Kevin Durant. Why? There's basically no other serious small forwards in the Eastern playoffs. Right, 76ers and the Celtics have no one, except for maybe Tobias Harris. The bottom 4 definitely have no star at the 3 position. The top 4 in the West only have 1 star, and that's Kevin Durant, who's actually the best, he says is the best among them. Respectively, 1, 2, 3 in the league is Giannis, maybe at no particular order, Giannis, Kawhi, and Kevin Durant, right? The rest of the playoffs doesn't have any other guys at the small forward that you even maybe consider an all-star. Like I said, except for maybe Tobias Harris and Paul George, who suffered tremendously in the second stretch of the season and prior to his injury. So if you're not putting Kawhi Leonard among, just regardless of who's better between the 3 or even between the 4, if you're not putting Kawhi Leonard in that category or that class with Giannis and Kevin Durant, where are you putting him? Down with the Jaylen Browns and the Otto Porter Jr.'s? It's absurd not to say that he's not in the conversation whatsoever. So that'll just be an indication right there. Next, he's saying that he's missed 22 games. I don't care if he missed 41 games in this season. That doesn't take away from his playing rate. And sure, maybe it makes his character and decision-making seem a little more questionable, but that's a completely moot point that missing 22 games in the season makes him an overrated player. You look at what he's able to accomplish on the court, right, compared to what the team is able to do without him. And to say that a 14-5 record or a 17-5 record while he's off the team would translate to the 60 games that he would play, right? That percentage would be equivalent across the same stretch of games. Absolutely absurd. Saying that he doesn't make his teammates better. Kyle Lowry's having a career best in assists at 8.7. Pascal Siakam's having a career year in every single stat category. Danny Green is having a career year in three-point percentage with 45.5% and the most three-pointers made per game, and tied for second in his career with most points per game. Serge Ibaka's tied for his best career points per game, and this season is his career best in assists with 1.3 assists per game. And this is entirely shaken up Toronto Raptors roster that has again managed to become the second best team in the East, better than this season the Golden State Warriors. I'm pausing for dramatic emphasis here. I'm running through a lot of different things, but basically every point he has is very strange. It's saying that he doesn't pass. He's having a career best in assists at 3.3. Almost doubling, I guess, is the rest of his career in assists per game. Right? But this is the one point that he can have a point here. I'll give it to him. It's almost half of Durant and Giannis's 5.9 assists per game, so can't really argue there. But I guess if not having 5+ assists per game means that you're the most overrated player in the league, then you know what, he can win that argument. But we all know that that's not the case. There's no criteria to say that if you're only getting 3.3 assists, then the rest of your game, your defense, your scoring, your ability to win games for your team, none of that stuff is being discarded here in this argument. Says that he doesn't communicate. This is just another person that doesn't watch the Raptors games, but has everything to say when it comes to criticizing them. And you know what? I'm just sick. I'm just sick of the American media and the complete ignorance and coverage of the only Canadian team. If he happened to have watched a single game this entire season, he would have seen how expressive Kawhi Leonard has become when arguing for calls, how engaged he is in supporting his teammates on the bench. You'd have heard from Kyle Lowry, Danny Green about how vocal he is in the locker room. It's such a crazy bias of the Toronto Raptors to say that Kawhi Leonard is not vocal and that he's not working with his teammates. That is completely absurd. You just have to watch a game, one single Raptors game, to see how completely different his persona and his personality and his vocalness on the court has changed from playing in San Antonio to now playing on Toronto. And a lot of that, the record that they have, his stats, speak for themselves. So it's a very, again, another weird comment to make. And then finally, 17-5 when he doesn't play. And I said that we were going to get to this. So he was saying that the Raptors are statistically better by percentage when Kawhi Leonard is not on the court. And again, you're trying to stretch a 22-game period versus a 60-game and suppose that the win percentage would stay constant across the same amount of games played, which is very crazy. But again, to circle back, and this is sort of the final nail in the coffin for me, is that his unanimously decided best player in the league and Kevin Durant. And I looked at all the losses for the Golden State Warriors this season. 8 of them are when they have no Stephen Curry, but they have Kevin Durant playing. And then in the reverse side, when they have Stephen Curry playing, but no Kevin Durant, they only have 1 loss. So just, I'll let that sink in, right? If Kawhi Leonard is so bad for the Toronto Raptors team, then, and those are the arguments that you're making, then perhaps you should swing it around and look at your boy Kevin Durant the exact same way. So now this is a big, not very biased rant, to be honest with you, even though this is the Raptors Digest. I mean, I'm just kind of responding to the arguments that Colin Cowherd made over assuming or opposing or opting to say that Kawhi Leonard is the most overrated player in the league. And of course, I'm going to come to Kawhi Leonard's defense, but I'm going to leave the rest of you guys. Perhaps you disagreed with the counter arguments that I proposed. Perhaps that some of you people here are not listening, are not Raptors fans, or not Kawhi Leonard fans. So I definitely encourage another debate to start up in the comment section because it's interesting. It clearly ruffled my tail feathers, but it's a fun time. It's all in good spirit, I think, in the end, because you can have the opinion that Kevin Durant is the best player in the league and that Kawhi Leonard is overrated. Ultimately, what's the best factor in determining something like that? It's going to be playoff success, and that's what makes this coming in so much fun. That's the reason I figured I'd put a podcast like this up now. just to really put everybody into the playoff spirit and the more competitive mentality coming. So I'm getting fired up, I'm getting intense, but it's all for a good reason, because this playoffs, everybody knows there's a lot riding on for the Toronto Raptors, and it's all fun. It's all fun, and I'm excited to see what happens. So if you guys made it this far, you're the best. Thanks for listening. Go check out, of course, we're on all the podcast platforms now, so check that out. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram. We're probably going to be doing some Instagram lives come this weekend or during playoff time at least. So if you're not following us, then you're not going to be able to jump in and have your comments heard. I'll put that up on YouTube after we're done that. And other than that, like I said, let me hear what your guys' take is in the comment section below. So thank you so much. Cheers.